what does that lead to and translate into? What is the introduction of the Crusaders to the Muslim world before Jerusalem? The most significant one is what is known as the Massacre of Ma'arra. The Massacre of Ma'arra. This takes place in December of 1098, and it's around modern day Idlib. SubhanAllah, when you think about all that Idlib has been through. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see forth the entire liberation of our brothers and sisters and completion of their victory in Syria. Allahumma ameen, what they've been through. So the Massacre of Ma'arra is particularly, as Ibn al-Athir rahimahullah says, the most shocking incident of the Crusaders entering into the Muslim world and really put on display their immorality. Like, it became a legend. The way that they acted in Ma'arra became legendary in the sense of evil. It sent shockwaves that a people could do this. Now keep in mind, this precedes the Mongols, right? We're not even talking about the Tatar and what would come from them yet, and at the hands of the Tatar. So this was really, really new to see the way that a people would behave, especially while carrying crosses, right? They're coming in the name of religion, plunging into the Muslim world with the flags of crosses sanctioned by the Pope. And what do they do in Ma'arra? Ibn al-Athir rahimahullah says they massacred 30,000 civilians in cold blood. 30,000 Muslims, they put them to the sword in cold blood. If you look up, this is what there are chapters in books called When the Crusaders Became Cannibals. When the Crusaders became cannibals. Because subhanAllah, at this point, what they unleashed of themselves in that process. We look at what the Zionists do in Gaza and we think, how crazy are these people? Like, how do they not see how beastly they have become in the process of making us into animals? How crazy and beastly have they become? You have to think about what the Crusaders had in their mind about the Muslim world that was taught to them before they came to the Muslim world, and how that sanctioned beastly behavior that maybe was foreign to them before. And so Albert of the Franks, this is from their side, he writes that in Ma'arra, our troops boiled pagan adults in cooking pots. We boiled them in cooking pots. And we devoured grilled children on skewers. They ate the people. They cooked and they ate the people. And this was supposed to be a sign of their domination over the Muslim world. But in the process, they had unlocked the evil, the true evil that was present inside of them and what they planned to do with the rest of the Muslim world. As for the exploitation of women, as for what was done beyond murder, our imagination can go to the worst of places because clearly they had no limits in what they were willing to do to the Muslim world as they came into Asham, as they started to pillage the area. And then you come to Jerusalem. The sad thing about Jerusalem is that when you move to July 15th, 1099, July 15th, 1099, it only took them 5 weeks to take Al-Quds. 5 weeks, a little over a month. And that's a sign of how weakened the Muslim world had become, how much we had relinquished the grip of glory that we had from the time of Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And the barbarians of Ma'arra, who were actually the Crusaders, enter into Jerusalem, and you can imagine what they did. And by the way, it wouldn't just be against the Muslims. The Jews this time, whose side do you think they were on? Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the one who brought them back after, remember the conflict that they had with Herakl. Umar radiallahu anhu settled their communities. The Jews were on the Muslim side. The Eastern Christians, historic Christian communities that were not under the Catholic Church, were also alongside the Muslims. And whatever they were able to put up with in terms of a fight was insignificant in the face of these people. And so, for the most part, people retreated to their holy places, and the Crusaders went into Al-Aqsa, and they killed up to 70,000 Muslims as they entered into Jerusalem. They burned the Jews alive in their synagogues, and they even set fire to the Eastern Orthodox churches. So they burned alive people and murdered anywhere up to 100,000 people as they took Jerusalem on that dark day of July 15th, 1099.
Reynold.
Of Aguilares. So this is not the famous Reynold that we were talking about, but he's one of the Crusaders. He writes about it. He says, in the temple and Solomon's porch, men rode in blood up to their knees and up to their horses' reins. They flooded the streets with blood. They destroyed the masajid. They destroyed everything that was holy to anybody else. And they beat back the Muslims, whatever existed of the Muslims, to different regions. At that time, Imaduddin Zengi, rahimahullah ta'ala, of the Seljuks, he fights back in Iraq with whatever he can. But he has limited success against the Crusaders before he himself is going to be assassinated. And his second son, Nuruddin Zengi, rahimahullah ta'ala, will take command of the Zengid dynasty. And this is where we come to the story of Salah ad-Din. You cannot talk about the story of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi rahimahullah without talking about Nuruddin al-Zengi rahimahullah ta'ala, who was the Mujaddid before the Mujaddid, the warrior before the warrior, the leader before the leader, the mentor of one of the greatest human beings this ummah has ever seen. You cannot talk about Salah ad-Din without understanding Nuruddin al-Zengi rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam ibn al-Athir rahimahullah ta'ala says that there has not been a man that this ummah has seen since Khulafa al-Rashidin like Nuruddin rahimahullah ta'ala. Not a more competent and great leader that this ummah has seen since Khulafa al-Rashidin like Nuruddin rahimahullah ta'ala. Nuruddin establishes his rule in Halab, in Syria. So his brother takes what's left over of Iraq from his father, and Nuruddin takes Syria. He establishes himself in Syria. And Nuruddin is someone who fights back the Crusaders valiantly and is able to beat them back from major strongholds and is able to establish multiple sneak attacks on different Crusader strongholds and quickly becomes a boogeyman of sorts to the Crusaders. As he is rebuilding his rule in Syria and beating back the Crusaders from certain regions, he also establishes over 40 madaris, 40 schools, scholarly hubs of learning, because he sees that the revival of ilm, the revival of the Quran, is central to the revival of the ummah. And so he mandates his warriors to go through religious training. The generals in the army of Nuruddin are all huffaz of Quran. He mandates that they learn once again, and he also wants to spread the sunnah in the face of what had happened under ad-Dawla al-Fatimiyya. So he's taking through different routes to beat back the Crusaders and to beat back some of the influences that had weakened the ummah from within. So he's a righteous man, an incredible human being. And subhanAllah, an entire lecture should be and could be dedicated to him. But tonight we will not be able to do him justice because we want to focus on Palestine and his role in Palestine.